Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, also known as the legendary birds of Kanto. Three of the most iconic Pokemon of the first generation, and maybe of all Pokemon. So iconic that they warranted a reskin into Darth Birb, Johto's Elite Four wheel cosplay, and single-headed dodrio. The trio birds are renowned in the Pokemon universe for their powers, but how legendary were they in the actual games? Let's find out. As a virtue of being legendary Pokemon, the bird trio of Kanto can only be encountered fairly late in the game, and constitute an interesting way to reward exploration of non-mandatory areas, as well as good targets for your one Master Ball. Fact, the first two of these can only be accessed after the 5th gym, which grants the player access to serve, and those two illustrious birds would be Articuno and Zapdos, both of which have enormous stats. The most notable difference being in Zapdos having more speed, while Articuno has more defense. Articuno will have a move pool including, most importantly, Ice Beam, Peck, Blizzard, which is learned at level 51, HM Fly to give it a good flying stab, as well as Bubble Beam via TM. Zapdos, on the other hand, gets Thunder Shock, Drill Peck, Thunder at level 51, as well as Thunderbolt by TM. Now, assuming the player gets one of the two early as possible, the first gym that they will face is 6th Gym Leader Sabrina. Sabrina's squad is notoriously fierce, thanks to Gen 1 Psychic type being the ultimate perfect type ever made. But her weakness, aside from the poor AI and the useless Venomoth, is how physically weak the Abroline is. Both Articuno and Zapdos can capitalize on this thanks to their flying stab. But not only does Zapdos have the upper hand in having a chance to grab Okos thanks to its higher attack and Drill Peck, but its higher speed gives it a higher crit chance, which helps whenever it fails to get an Oko. However, both Pokemon have a good chance to be favored by Sabrina's AI and get a full sweep, though, once again, Zapdos has a clear advantage. Once you finish with Sabrina, whichever legendary bird the player has will have to face Blaine. Obviously, Articuno will be at a disadvantage due to its ice typing, but thanks to its massive special and access to Bubble Beam, it will breeze through Blaine's unevolved Pokemon and will only lose to Rapidash if it gets hit with enough Fire Spins, which puts the Fire Horse at the mercy of poor AI choices, or Fire Spin misses. Though Arcanine will almost always toast Articuno, even if it clicks Ember a few times thanks to the chip damage from Rapidash. Oh, and it can also just evaporate it with Fire Blast. Zapdos, however, due to it being the total Chad, can as easily beat Ponyta and Growlithe thanks to the sheer power of Thunderbolt or Thunder. And it has a lot more chances to sweep fully, which it will manage most of the time. Go Team Instinct, I guess. If any Articuno fans are upset so far, well, hope might come from the people who you expect the least. Namely the guy who is known for being the most evil man on Earth, aka Giovanni. Articuno's Ice Beam will Oko Giovanni's Pokemon's hopes, dreams, chances at appearing in the Gen 2 games, making it completely trivial. Zapdos, on the other hand, will struggle a bit, given that it is a ground type gym, though before you expect the legendary to be useless against Giovanni's mighty electric immune squad, look at these movesets. I mean, it's no wonder Ash's Pikachu was a problem for Team Rocket. Dude, have you ever heard of Earthquake? Anyways, Zapdos will, though not as easily, manage to Drill Peck its way through everything until Rhydon, except if it gets unlucky with something like Crit Thrashes. The Rhydon itself, however, will stop Zapdos mid-flight and require teammate assistance. Before heading to the Elite Four, the player will finally, upon reaching Victory Road, access the third and final bird, Moltres, which I have to say is kind of weird. Why would Moltres be found much later in the game, even though it is at the same level and it's not mechanically better or more important than its two friends? Maybe it's because Moltres turns out to be the most effective Elite Four secret of all time, thus rewarding 4D chess type players who saved their Master Balls with a swift victory. Or not? Let us see. Moltres, upon being caught, will know Peck and Fire Spin. Now, Fire Spin, if you're not in the know, is one of the most broken moves in Gen 1, together with all partial trapping moves like Wrap and Bind. If Moltres were to use Rapid Spin on a slower foe, the foe will be unable to move for 2 to 5 turns. Then Moltres would have the opportunity to slake the same move again and again and again, and again and again and again until the target faints. However, there are 2 problems with using this move. One, it's only a 85% accuracy, which, if you use it several times over, makes you very likely to miss, and I mean, are you really gonna waste your time on this? I mean, a legendary Pokemon is supposed to be fun to use. If one of the best things you can get in the game has an outcome that looks like a slow HP depletion with Fire Spin, then it's probably not as good as you thought it was. So let's pretend Fire Spin does not exist. Besides those 2 moves, Moltres learns another move at level 52. What move is that? Fire Blast? Flamethrower? No. Freaking Leer! If you want high damage moves, you can teach it Flying Fire Blast and just push it from there. On Lorelei, Zapdos is the best bird by a landslide. It kills the 5 water Pokemon on her squad in one thunder, and it can even tank an Ice Punch from Jinx if it's not underleveled and does not get a crit. Moltres struggles against the Slowbro and the Lapras' water moves, but its Fire Blast will carry the day against Cloyster thanks to its pitiful special. And Articuno will at best KO 2 Pokemon thanks to it being thoroughly unequipped to fight Ice-type Pokemon and not resisting water or ice itself. Bruno's fighting types will be no match for the legendary trio, whose most defining characteristic is birdness. I know it's not a word, but it's kind of the point. Onixes will fall to Articuno and even Moltres thanks to the sheer power of Fire Blast, but will wall the Zapdos hard enough unless Bruno's AI messes that up, which it admittedly does pretty often, making Bruno mostly easy for Zapdos and extremely easy for both other birds. Agatha's Gengars will not be OHKO'd by any non-crit move the legendary birds might use, but her random AI will most likely just fold the game anyway. Her other Pokemon will probably get OHKO'd by some strong special attacks. But upon reaching Lance, Articuno's time to shine will be obvious, as his team will simply be one-shot on 4 of the 5 Pokemon by Blizzard. However, Articuno needs to be very careful of not only Gyarados, but also of a Hyper Beam crit from the blazingly fast Aerodactyl. Zapdos and Moltres will have a harder time against those 4 Pokemon thanks to the Dragon type's greatness, though they will at least get the 2 Dragonairs down most of the time, and Zapdos will one-shot Aerodactyl if it does not get toasted first. Zapdos also has an edge over Moltres from totally decimating Gyarados, which Moltres gets ruined by, as well as having neutral electric moves on Dragonite, which makes it usable to at least help with the big dragon. And then the champion fight. In summary, all 3 birds can obviously be useful on the Elite Four, with Zapdos being great on Lorelei, Articuno being formidable on Lance, and all 3 being good on Bruno and Agatha, as well as all of them being usable on the rival. In Pokemon Yellow, there is more similarity than changes for the birds. However, Blaine in Pokemon Yellow has a much stronger team, which means Articuno is not completely unusable, and Zapdos is, while still very good, just less likely to sweep. Giovanni will be very punishing to Zapdos with its improved movesets, and both birds will have to be very careful of Persian. The Elite Four remains more or less the same, with Lance being now much more punishing to Zapdos and Moltres, and a few changes to the champ's team that includes most notably the presence of an electric type in the form of Jolteon or Magneton that will be harsh on all 3 birds. and a Cloyster, which is an equivalent of a nerf to Articuno. So how well did the legendary Kanto trio do in the Gen 1 games? Well, being legendary Pokemon, we obviously need to hold them to a higher standard. And at that, we can say that Articuno delivered by being good at every part of the game from the point you get it, except maybe Blaine. Zapdos having a similar situation with the culprit being Giovanni, though Zapdos has slightly more of a niche, and Moltres being totally ruined by its accessibility for 99% of the game without any redeeming quality to set it apart from the other birds, which was worse. Regarding which of Articuno or Zapdos is better in those games, we at PokeRebels are very torn, with some being seduced by the allure of the high crit rate and drill pecks, while some feel frozen in time, seeing the potential 90% accurate blizzards. Do you think you can help us tilt the balance in one of two directions? Or would you promote an edgier Moltres mob that will attempt to take over the comment section in an anarchy of fiery bliss? Feel free to let us know, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.